everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Before we do officially kick this off, I do want to point out for the audience, if you have questions, please type them into the Q&A section. You'll find that at the bottom of your screen. And ask questions throughout the conversation, and time permitting, we will get to most of, and hopefully all of them at the end. So I'd like to now turn this over to Force Family Office's Chief Communications Officer, Harvey Briggs. Harvey, take it away.
Great. Thank you, Callie, and thank you everyone for taking the time to join us today. This is going to be a great conversation with a really interesting company. Some people may know that in my other life, I'm also an automotive journalist as the editor and publisher of the website Rides and Drives. So I heard of Canoo a number of years ago when they first launched their company, and was really curious, even with the innovative technology and design, how they would compete in the consumer market. Well, come to find out that they have recently looked at a new strategy that should provide them with an entry path into the automotive industry in a very unique way. So I'm going to turn it over to the guys from Canoo to talk about that. And here with us today is Greg Ethridge. He is the CFO at Canoo, and Niten Patel, the Chief Technology Officer as well. So they're gonna go through the company. We're gonna have a little conversation, and then we're gonna get to your questions. So please make sure you put those in the Q&A. So right now I'm gonna turn it over to Greg Ethridge, who will take you through a little bit of the Canoo story.
Thank you, Harvey. Just a quick sound check. Is everything coming through okay?
Perfectly.
Okay, and I'm going to see if I can get the slides to show up here. And apologies for any technical glitches here, which I've already had happen once or twice in my time at Canoo.
It looks great from here. So we're good to go.
I love
as
it.
long as the technology glitches are with the presentations and not the vehicles, we're good. So
yeah, no, it's user error on my part.
There you go. Well, take it away, Greg.
I laugh a little bit because in my first earnings call, I had a little bit of a technical glitch in the middle of my portion. So nevertheless, well, thanks everyone for taking the time. And thank you to our friends at Force Family Office, Harvey and team, for giving us a few minutes to present the Canoo story. I'm really excited to be here with you and have Niten Patel, our CTO, with us. Just a quick note on my background. I've been around the Canoo business since 2020. I joined the board at the end of 2020 in connection with the listing and the SPAC merger closing, and then more recently in late August stepped in as the CFO at Tony Aquilow's request, and obviously really really excited to be here and share with you some of our latest progress. Nita, maybe you can take a minute to introduce yourself as well, and then we can jump into the materials here.
Thank you, Greg, and thank you, Harvey and Force Family, for inviting us today. I'm Niten Patel. As Greg said, I'm CTO at Canoo. Prior to joining Canoo, I spent about 24 plus years, among which 19 or so at GM, General Motors, and an FCA, and joined Canoo in 21. It's a great journey for me. Starting from GM, I was involved in developing electrification technologies, and when I joined Canoo, it really got excited because we started building the technologies from ground up, and I would like to talk more about that today in our presentation. Back to you.
Great. Thank you. So let me see as I get these slides rolling here. So what I think we're going to do is spend a handful of minutes on some slides we prepared that are going to hit on our kind of key, call it business attributes as a company, and then plenty of time for Nitin to talk about some of our really groundbreaking and unique approach to technology. So where I typically start with those that are not as familiar with Canoo is this is an earlier stage business. To put it in kind of context, Tesla founded in 2003, Rivian and Lucid in 2007, 2009, Canoo in 2017, right? So we are extremely excited to leverage the ecosystem that Tesla started, but we were not the earliest mover clearly, but really excited to kind of bring in our own brand and our own technology to the ecosystem. And so we've spent the last now 7 years as a company building some unique technology and investing 1.6 billion so far in the platform. And I think a couple of items to kind of point out. The technology itself was from the ground up. We have fully finished, around the technology stack, the design, engineering, validation. So technology has been de-risked. And I think that's something that if Tony were here telling you the story, Tony Aquila, our CEO and chairman, came in as an investor in 2020. And his view was, with the money that had been raised at that point in connection with the SPAC and the incremental capital that he's invested, we've de-risked the tech. And then now we're at this inflection point of moving into manufacturing and growth. And as I mentioned, well, I will mention, Tony is a serial entrepreneur. He founded and built a business called Solera Holdings, very successful business. He ultimately sold that to private equity and started his own family office. So I think that's, a very a unique situation. Obviously, talking with family offices here, he originally got into Canoo through his family office, AFB. And he is very, very invested here to the tune of probably over $300 million of capital invested to date, and is extremely engaged in the day-to-day aspects of the business. So I just think that's important from a founder perspective for everyone on this phone to know that. From a business model, and we'll talk again about tech, but on the business side, we are developing a platform focused on initially fleet and government customers. So we're not going to go head-to-head in the consumer space. The original concept of our business was going to be a consumer-oriented vehicle. And that was one of the key changes that Tony made in his first 18 months after taking the helm, was really refocusing that. And in that vein, with the lifestyle delivery vehicle, the LDV that you see on the top right corner, we inked agreements with Walmart and many other commercial customers to the tune of 750 million of committed orders, or about 18,000 units. And our goal is to really start delivering on those orders in a meaningful way in 2024. We started to deliver on a handful of units this year, and we're going to be ramping up production meaningfully next year. And to the point of the de-risk technology, our focus now is on scale and manufacturing. One kind of another key element of this for everyone to keep in mind is the IRA credit. As you know, the $7,500 credit is fairly limiting for consumers, but it's fully accessible for our fleet customers, our commercial customers. So I think that's a key attribute in terms of the pivot that we made and what Tony made. I think that's another key benefit that enhances our ability to drive price, to drive margin, and ultimately generate ROI for our customers. We've built our business around a backlog, right? We've contracted sales upfront and with fleets. Therefore, we're not taking consumer risk. We're not taking one and two off, sale risk. We're selling these by the batch, by the hundreds, hopefully the thousands, right? Ultimately, and that de-risks the business proposition. And I think finally, on this page, I'd mention that we believe that we will be able to achieve gross margin and EBITDA positivity in 2025. And the reason we can do that at a much lower rate, because we've re-envisioned the way manufacturing needs to work. So rather than trying to take the approach, build it and they will come, we're starting out at a very small scale and growing and iterating as we move forward, and we'll be able to achieve cash flow positive at a much lower volume rate than traditional auto manufacturers. So I think the core of our technology starts with the multi-purpose platform. And this gives you a little bit of a visual of what we've designed. And I'll ask Nitin here a minute to step in and start talking about some of our unique technology attributes. But one thing that I think is really important here is this platform was built around the wheelbase of a Prius, the turning radius of a Prius, but we've been able to really maximize the use cases around this platform by really pushing it to its limits. And again, Nitin can talk in more detail. The other thing, the steer-by-wire system was the first to market from a vehicle perspective. This technology has been used in airlines for a long time. It's got multiple redundancies, but the flexibility of not having a mechanical connection from the steering wheel into your front steering wheels is really enhances the space, the volumetric space of the platform, and therefore those different use cases and applications. But it also allows you to move the steering wheel very seamlessly across the platform. So left-hand drive, right-hand drive, front of the vehicle, back of the vehicle, and that's a really exciting and I think exciting proposition for many of our customers as they think about different applications down the road and use cases, whether it be military, government, or consumer eventually. So Nitin, maybe if you don't mind, you can hit on a couple of the other items here, and I know we have a couple slides, so just direct me if you when you want me to advance.
Thank you, Greg. And as you mentioned, this is our the flattest platform that you can see in the market. And the reason for that is because of some of the technologies that we have developed at Canoo, including steer-by-wire and the utilization of transverse leaf spring that eliminates pretty much having the need of the tall strut towers. Our goal was to keep the platform below the line of the tire so that way we can maximize the interior cabin space, and that's you can see right here, and we'll talk about that in some of our product portfolio as well. If you go to the next slide, Greg. So at Canoo, we continue to innovate on 3 vectors: engineering, hardware, and software. And some of the examples that we have innovated at Canoo, including some of the core technologies, is of course the drive unit, which is equivalent to the ICE engine in normal conventional vehicle. This drive unit is very compact. It's about 13% greater power density, and we're able to achieve that by tightly integrating the electric motor, gearbox, and the power inverter, which is very low profile, directly connected to the housing of the motor, which gets rid of all of the high voltage connection systems that saves cost and packaging space as well. This drive unit is very tightly packaged on the rear axle of our vehicle to give us the rear wheel drive, and in the all wheel drive option, we can have that integrated into the front axle as well. As Greg mentioned, we'll be the first one to go to the market with the harmonized steer-by-wire system. And again, we have paid very close attention to making sure that we provide redundancy for the 12-volt supply that supplies the power to the steering wheel system. Suspension, as I talked about, we are using the transverse leaf springs that goes cross car that allows us to increase the cargo area roughly about 30%, because again, we don't need tall strut towers that takes over space from the interior. Our bidirectional charging system also is state of the art. It not only charges the vehicle from the power from the wall, but also it exports the power and gives opportunity for our customer to power either power tools or appliances through 110 and 240 volts outlet in our vehicles. And finally, our battery technology. We take pride in our battery modules, which are highly dense, low cost. And on the next page, I'll talk about some of the differentiation of our battery system. Greg, if you go to the next slide, please. So what are the main differentiation? And again, Tony Aquila always talks about democratizing our technologies so that we not only apply these into the automotive application, but also in some of the stationary and standalone military applications as well. So again, 4 pillars: modularity and configurability. Our modules are designed such that it can adapt cells from multiple suppliers. So we are de-risking the supply chain situation that may occur into the future as well. Again, these modules are designed to adapt anywhere from 50 volts all the way to 1,000 volts applications. So again, as we develop the future platform, and if we go from 400 to 800 volts, we simply configure our interconnect board and reconfigure our connections of the cells on the modules. We can simply go from 400 to 800 volt systems. Again, it's efficient design. As you can see, this number, 292 watt-hour per liter and 195 watt-hour per kilogram energy densities we're able to achieve because of our packaging and our cold plate, patented cold plate technology, which was our first patent at Canoo. Our structural integrity, each of these modules are connected through the brackets to the ladder frame And again, it's not a box in a box design, which saves almost 40 kilograms of the weight normally that conventional battery pack would otherwise have. And again, serviceability, we always design for manufacturing and serviceability whenever we design our component. And by having each of the modules at 5 kilowatt hour, the service cost would be not as much if you have 15 kilowatt hour per se per module. Next slide, please. We also, again, the ground up design includes in-house designing each of the electronics, purpose-built electronics. The onboard charger, as I said, does bidirectional charging as well as exportable power. Inverter that takes high voltage from the battery and applies the AC voltage to the motor to produce torque and to the wheel. The battery disconnect unit is integrated inside the battery pack itself. And then DC-DC that you see on the fifth on the row, it has dual channel in it. As I said, steer-by-wire system, we wanted to make sure that we have redundancy in place so that 12 volts is always present. So we have two 12 volts low voltage battery. In addition to that, we have two channels of DC-DC that converts high voltage from 400 to 12 volts, so that we always make sure that our vehicles will be powered with the 12 volt systems. Next slide, please. Greg,
Yeah,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Nitin. I just jump in. I know that I was just looking down at our clock, and I'm going to try to. I know we have a handful of slides we want to get through, but we'll move through them fairly quickly. I think that as we were talking about in the prior, as Nitin was talking about the MPP1, the platform technology, our business case is we have a very modular, very flexible BEV platform that then we can take lots of different use cases, whether it be a lifestyle vehicle as you see on the screen, or a pickup truck, or a delivery van, or a sports car, and use the exact same platform, which has about 60% of our BOM cost, right? Which gives us a huge amount of efficiencies to be able to introduce new models effectively, right, without starting from scratch. A lot of cost savings on the labor side, and really little incremental investment. Because 70% of our critical functions are included in that drivable platform, drivable chassis. So, we think about the one of the reasons Tony got so excited about the technology and the hardware stack, the technology stack in the early days of Canoo, was that he saw the ability to really leverage this platform to the maximum. And so, and we're doing that. And that was one of the benefits of, I think, Harvey, you mentioned in the relatively short period, we were able to really pivot and move from a consumer vehicle to a delivery vehicle and a fleet solution. Nitin, do you want to touch very quickly on kind of, here's a perfect example of one a case we implemented for Walmart.
Yeah, so Greg, as you mentioned, right, our multi-purpose platform is quite versatile, and by making minor modification to our suspension system, we went from LDV 130, which is 130 cubic feet, to 190 of the cargo area, and we were able to increase the payload by about 191 pounds and the cargo volume by about 57 cubic feet. And this was designed actually for the use case for the Walmart customer. And we were able to pack in about 18 more Walmart totes. That's very important for the delivery efficiencies. And as you see some of the numbers, these numbers in the bottom came from the evaluation drive that Walmart did about a month or so ago in Dallas area. Our LDV 190 meets about 100% of the Walmart use cases and duty cycles. And about 130 meets about 97% of the Walmart use cases. Again, the whole goal here is to leverage our multi-purpose platform and reduce overall enterprise costs in our investment as we go from use case to use case and customer to customer for some of these applications. Next slide. And above all, we are TEM, or Tony always talks about, we consider ourselves as a technology equipment company, and we take pride in some of the innovations, the core innovations in all facets of the areas of the vehicle, starting from propulsion side to suspensions and some of the drive-by wire packaging. We have over 232 patents and more in pipeline coming to be registered and to be issued.
So I think we've covered this largely, but from a business case perspective, we built this platform around, called a 1,000,000-mile platform. But so thinking about not just the first consumer or the first user, whether commercial, otherwise, but also the second, the third. And from Tony's perspective and coming out of the auto tech space and building a really phenomenal data business, we use this as a way to integrate ourselves with our customers. So it could be integrating ourselves into a fleet to help them do business better, potentially whether it be the first user of that platform or the second or third. So thinking about the life cycle of that vehicle, and then all the different potential use cases, as you can see on the left side of the page. And then finally, not to be missed, obviously the technology and the software overlay, which creates another very high margin opportunity in addition to what something I didn't probably mention earlier, but we are also integrating with most of our customers. As you see with the King Bee vehicle here in the middle is an upfitting solution, or the Schindler vehicle. We're creating very customized upfitting opportunities for our delivery vehicles. And we've done the same, as you saw with some of the pictures of the Walmart vehicles. So I think as we think about go to market and business, we're not just selling the vehicle, we're selling kind of a solution is the way we think about it. How do we integrate with our customer and make them do business better? I'm not going to dwell on the backlog. We've talked about this a lot. I'm sure everybody on the phone seen some of these numbers, but we have a very strong backlog, and as I mentioned earlier, we're continuing to execute against that. We have a keystone moment for the company was announcing the Walmart relationship and the partnership with them in the middle of 2022, and we continue, as Nitin was describing, to continue to work with them on the right solution to really satisfy some of their e-commerce needs. When we think about our fleet customers, largely there are a lot of different vehicles in every fleet. And we're not trying to satisfy every vehicle use case. We're really focused on class 1, class 2. That's really our bread and butter. And then over time, we may integrate into other classes as well. But that's kind of our initial opportunity. And we know that that's going to keep us very busy for the next couple of years as we continue to ramp up in our manufacturing site. I'm actually sitting in Oklahoma City right now. We have some customer meetings this afternoon. And so I'm on the left side of the page. It's about a 630,000 square foot site. It'll be the hub of the company. I mentioned, I think earlier before the call started, we brought on about 50 new members to our team in the manufacturing business yesterday, and we're continuing to scale up. At full employment, will be about 700 to 800 members in OKC. And then on the right side of the page, you can see our Mons line that is set up about 2 hours east of Oklahoma City, where they will generate and build using Panasonic 2170 cells. And put together our battery modules that Nitin was talking about that will then be shipped to our OKC site and integrated into our 80 kilowatt platform, rolling chassis platform. That's the base for our solution. So I think with that, maybe Harvey, we can hand it back to you for some Q&A, and we can jump into some of the audience's questions as well.
Yeah, great.
From a process, should I drop the slides here just so we're back?
Yeah, let's go ahead and drop the slides so when we talk, they can focus on you guys. So yeah, we'll take a couple of questions here. We've got a ton of questions in the Q&A, and I really want to make sure we get to their questions. But I just had a couple of things that I wanted to ask you about, more from an automotive standpoint, I guess. Building on one platform has its manufacturing advantages, as you've talked about, but that limits you ultimately to the markets you can serve. How does that, are there limitations, or is that a long-term benefit for you guys?
I guess I can maybe start, then Nitin, you can jump in maybe on the more technical stuff. But I think when we think about the flexibility of the platform, and I know it's, you can't fully appreciate it until you step in the vehicle in many cases, right? Or you can see the amount of cargo capacity on a platform the size of a Prius. And people scratch their head all the time and say, I just can't believe that. I mean, I need it. But when you step into the back of one of our lifestyle vehicles, it does feel like you're in a limo. I mean, I'm not kidding. You can literally, you can lay 2 people down flat almost and be be very comfortable. So there's a ton of usable space on our MPP1. I think there will, look to some degree, as you start moving into larger payloads, larger use cases, class 3 vehicles, things like that, our platform's not going to satisfy all of those cases. But we think that the market, the TAM, and the opportunity around the MPP, even as just designed today, without Nitin and his team continuing to push the limits, it's massive, right? So we don't really believe that that is an actual limitation for us based on the technology and the rolling chassis and the MPP1. But Nitin, maybe you can try to jump in or add on to that from your perspective, from the engineering perspective.
Absolutely, Greg, right? So as you described, MPP actually does cater multiple use cases within its class. And even if we were to modify our platform, say that we are at 2850 millimeter wheelbase today, if we were to go 3100 millimeter wheelbase in the future for class 2 vehicles, by simply modifying our ladder frame and still reuse some of the propulsion systems and controllers that we already have developed, in-house developed, and software, all of these can be still reused. So again, it's really not limitation because we are still going to leverage what we have developed already for MPP1 into what we call now MPP 1.5 and 2.
Great. So it really is a scalable architecture.
Correct. It's a modular, scalable architecture, yes.
Exactly.
Right.
And the same goes for the battery system. The same
Yep.
goes, as Nitin mentioned, for propulsion. The vehicle behind him is has a very different, drive system than the vehicles behind me, right? I mean, so those are the benefits of the modular technology is you add another drive system, you increase the horsepower, you double the horsepower. There's all sorts of variations without having to go back and redesign the architecture itself.
Sure. Obviously, you're starting getting ramped up here. There are some challenges ahead for you. What are the biggest challenges that you're facing in the next 12 months here?
Look, I think as a company like ours, we've faced different challenges. Every company has challenges in the EV space right now. So I don't think that we're necessarily unique. I think we're approaching those challenges differently. In some cases, we have different challenges than, say, a Rivian or a Tesla or Lucid. But I think at the end of the day, our 80 as we focus and moving forward is getting vehicles to market. And it's really ramping up the site where I'm sitting and showing the world that we can move into low scale and then ultimately high scale production. So, and that is our goal over the next 24 months, right? Is moving from current capacity today, we can build about a vehicle a day based on, supply chain and some other limitations, moving up to 8 jobs an hour at some point, down the road as we continue to scale this facility. To do all of that in-house, there's multiple iterations, but we know we can get it and we know we can get there, but we're not gonna run too early and then run into some of the challenges that others have faced. And at the same time, we're also gonna be very judicious with our capital. For example, yesterday we were able to, or I think actually we're in the process, so I don't want to go into too much detail, but we were able to buy some really interesting equipment off of a competitor at a very low price. We're taking all of those opportunities to bring some of that equipment in-house and doing it very capital efficiently. But we're not in the world today, in the market today, where we can just go assume that we can spend $5 billion on a manufacturing site and then expect that we can then drum up enough volume to support that capital investment. That to me is a really tough proposition for any company right now. And so, we're looking at it very differently. How do we walk before we run, and how do we continue to make steady progress to get to where we need to as a company? And I think that manufacturing is really our focus. The other things I think, Harvey, that over the next 12 months, we're obviously continue to build on our backlog. We're going to continue to be able to announce, we believe, some really interesting both commercial as well as potential government customers, and we're continuing to work around the clock on all of these different efforts. Great.
I'm going to ask one last question, and then we're going to get right to audience questions because we've got over 40 in there now. Callie's got her work cut out for her. So you talked about the challenges. So what are the milestones then that investors should look for in the next 12 to 18 months that let them know you're meeting your goals and that you guys are going to be successful?
I think, look, these can obviously change, quarter to quarter, depending on, there's a lot going on, and we didn't touch on, for example, the work we're doing with the Defense Innovation Unit of DoD on the battery project. We didn't touch on, necessarily, some of these other, the Army or the military looking at different potential use cases for our vehicles. But I'd say if you focus predominantly on the LDV, it's going to be moving and it's going to be measured based on us delivering vehicles to our huge backlog of customers and continuing to announce additional wins on contracts, and being able to go through that process, right? Because the purchasing process on the fleet side is very different than on a commercial fleet side than going through a government agency or going through a part of DoD. So I think those are things that we're constantly trying to achieve, but we don't know exactly when those things will take place. But we're obviously going to only announce those when they're firm, and are able to make that that mark, share that with the market.
Great. Excellent. Well, I'm going to get out of the way and let the people on the call who are here, all 225 of them, get their word in, because
I'm glad we have such an, look, Canoo is very exciting. I know it's exciting for hopefully many of those on the call and learning, maybe also learning their first information about Canoo, but it's something that we live and breathe every day. So I guess Callie, I'll let you.
Yeah, I'm gonna, yes, so I am, and I apologize to those if we don't get to all of them. But so someone had asked, they've been reading a lot about the use of silica instead of graphite. Does Canoo have any interest in that?
So Greg, I can take that. So currently, we are using Panasonic cell. The chemistry we have in there is nickel, cobalt, aluminum, NCA. And these are highly durable cells. There are 5 billion cells on the road. One of the first and foremost requirement for us was to make sure that our vehicles are safe under all conditions. Safety and performance goes after that. So that's a technology we are using today, Kelly, and we are going to continue looking into the futuristic technologies, including solid state, and we are building the pipeline of the different type of cells as well. We have cylindrical cells today, but we are also looking into prismatic and pouch, including cobalt-free technologies and moving from silicon to graphite. So as a TEM, we will continue to innovate.
Thank you. Is the Canoo LV currently in production, and how many are being produced per day?
Sorry, what was the first part of the question?
Is the Canoo LV?
Oh, LDV. Sorry, I just missed. Make sure we're not. We are producing the LDV. Yes, we have delivered and are in the process of delivering a handful of those vehicles to customers this quarter. As we announced, the Oklahoma, some of the Oklahoma vehicles in process of delivery. We currently can produce, from a manufacturing readiness perspective, about 1 per day. We are ramping up several parts of our facility such that early next year in Q1, we will be able to move into substantially higher volumes. But I want to caveat, there's obviously a lot of work being done on supply chain harmonization. And that's right now is a very, very much a focus of ours as we make sure that we have parts in the right locations to be able to produce at that capacity. So this is a very normal process in the industry as we work with our partners and our suppliers. And that is something that we're very focused on as we move forward and into 2024.
Great. Thank you. And can you talk about, will there be a reverse split? Why stick with dilution for funding for now? Any update from DOE?
Oh, that's a lot. Okay, so really quick, everyone, I think everyone's probably aware that we've been given notice by NASDAQ that we need to get our stock back in compliance. We had an extension that was announced in September that allows us through roughly the end of March to be able to be in compliance. So we're working towards that. We have not made a final determination on what we're going to do in terms of reverse splits and whatnot. But it's not this is a compliance issue with the exchange. So there's no risk at least there's minimal risk around delisting itself. This is really more about the mechanics to get back in compliance with the exchange. And then on the DOE side, I think you threw that in there quickly at the end. We are working. We've worked with a lot of different government agencies, both at the federal and the state level. I don't think that it's any secret that many mobility businesses like ourselves have been in touch with DOE. I don't really have much of a new update there, other than we are continuing to work with them and being able to access government programs when and if they're available.
Great. Okay, thank you. A lot of these are you just answered. So can you talk about your partnerships and any relationship with the post office, the United States Postal Service?
I can't talk in detail about it. You know, when we have something material to announce, we will. There was some speculation on social media around some vehicles that may have been in testing with them. So I really can't comment, much beyond that. But I think from a use case perspective and the ability for us to really satisfy, particularly with our LDV 190 and in many of the instances, towards the 10 billion I think that Biden has allocated towards electrification of the U.S. Postal Service fleet, we think that we're very well positioned to be able to be a player in that next round of RFPs. But again, until that's until that's worked its way through the system, hard to comment. I would say that their purchasing cycle, obviously, in government agencies can be fairly long and drawn out. But beyond that, I think that's where I should end.
Okay, thank you. What are the challenges on the supply chain side? Also, is the body exterior and interior more aluminum or steel?
Nitin, maybe you can hit the second one first.
Yeah, so it's a combination of steel and aluminum we have for the LDV at least.
Okay, so and then on the supply chain side, I mean, what are the challenges? I think these are the types of challenges that any company at our stage would see as they're ramping up production. It's really making sure that we have all of our suppliers in sync with our needs at a specific point in time, because you can't complete a full vehicle until you have all of the parts, ready to be able to be integrated. So I think it's really a timing and sequencing item, as well as making sure that we have, as our design was finalized, making sure all of those pieces and those changes are integrated into our supplier base. So I can't talk to detail about it because we have a whole team that focuses just on that. But what I can say is that we're working, 24/7 to get that into the right place.
Okay, great. Any updates on partnerships with the Fortune 100 and 500 companies that Tony had mentioned during one of the last calls?
We hope to have an update shortly. There's on the one that was referenced in the last call, there's multiple relationships there, or not relationships, but kind of business relationships with Canoo. So it's taken longer than we had anticipated to get that news out there, but we hope to have a release here in the new year shortly. That will address that.
Okay. Is Walmart satisfied with the delivery schedule? How quickly can you fill Walmart's order?
Look, Walmart is a large company that has been really internally focused on their e-commerce strategy. It's growing very quickly. What I can say is our relationship with Walmart is very deep. We know, based on our experience with Walmart around our vehicles, that they love our vehicles. It is not a vehicle that meets every one of their use cases, because they've got large vehicles and smaller vehicles. But our vehicle is really unique in that it can be very powerful in their multiple hour e-commerce delivery strategy. So, and that's something that we've had very detailed sessions with Walmart frequently, as we're evaluating kind of what the mix is that they need and how we ultimately integrate and start delivering to their fleet. So so I would say that we're continuing to work through various items. I think they are also continuing to work through more efficiencies in their own system, which has to connect ultimately to their vehicle and their mobility strategy. And so that's some of the complication just dealing with very large companies like Walmart. But we're hopeful that we'll be able to get vehicles on the road with them in a meaningful way, and probably by the second or third quarter of next year.
Once you move to consumer sales, will you create a new dealership structure, online purchasing, work with existing auto dealers?
I think that we would probably take more of the Tesla approach and just manage through a very efficient mechanism. To be honest, at least since I've been inside the company, I have not spent a lot of time focused on the consumer side of the business. So it's something I think that will evolve. But I believe that we will, given our strategy and trying to be as kind of cost efficient as possible, we may, I'm sure we will have partners that help us distribute those vehicles, and there may be some direct sales as well through various structures around the country. But again, that's probably still a ways away before we get to that stage.
Do you see opportunities in the international markets in the future? India, Europe, Asia?
There absolutely are opportunities, and we're being careful around. We believe our vehicle would be phenomenal, for example, in Europe. We believe our technology in our vehicle could be very powerful in the Middle East. And so we are looking at, always looking at lots of options. I think we have plenty of work to do in North America before we, spend a ton of resources and time overseas. But those opportunities are absolutely there. And I think I think everyone probably got a sense of this, but and Nitin was describing, we're constantly iterating on our technology. So as we come up with different concepts or battery changes in our battery technology or chemistry, et cetera, we're making sure that we're taking advantage of those business opportunities both in the US and abroad. And we have to, as a company like ours, we have to be nimble, and we have to be mindful that there could be something that pops up overseas that we're not necessarily anticipating. We're not going to go after it, spend 90% of our resources going after it, but we're always thinking about business development opportunities, and as any company needs to be doing.
How will vehicles be serviced in the field? What is the service system structure?
So our focus on the rollout, the reason Oklahoma was really important to us is that it's central, right? And it's adjacent to a number of high population states, including Texas and other areas. So when we think about the reach and being able to handle service and being able to roll out from a central part of the United States, we think Oklahoma is really powerful there. Our plan would be to effectively roll out through 7 kind of adjacent state blocks. Therefore, we're not having, and again, we're fleet focused, right? So our B2B customers can be concentrated in these geographies such that we're not spread too thin too fast. And so that the way we're really kind of managing that more on the geography side. And ultimately, we will be partnering with some others in addition to doing some of that work in-house. But I think that's, right now, given that we're in the early stages of deliveries, there's a lot more work to be done, on that piece of the business as we expand our team.
Okay, thank you. So under consideration of stock price action, why do you think the market's not endorsing your commitment?
Look, I think that the market has been challenged broadly the last 18 or so months. I think that there is our sector has been largely under fire. More recently, I think that there actually has been strong interest in the stock, but it is not actually resulted in price appreciation recently. So I think that there's interest, but I think also as we think about kind of capital needs, we have been raising a lot of capital, so that that dilutive effect has had some impact on our stock price. And so that's just when we think about it, the big picture. We are after 1.6 billion of investment, which is pretty meaningful. We believe that is kind of a very That's kind of the bar on the minimum of how you might think about the business should be valued. And right now we're being valued at a meaningful discount to kind of investment over time. So people can look at that as, from a different, different perspectives. But I think that that's one way to approach it, is like we have X dollars of cost invested, and the market's only valuing us at a different value that's a discount. So there could be meaningful upside from where our stock is currently trading.
Thank you. Do any of the customers, like a Walmart, are they also willing to invest and become business partners?
I think we're constantly looking at strategic options with all of our partners. I think that is, Walmart, the original relationship with Walmart, and has always included a warrant for 20% of the company. So they actually have a warrant, a large warrant that was struck around the time of the announcement in 2022. I think that's always on the table, but until we have kind of something that's firm, obviously there's nothing there to announce. I think those are conversations that are always ongoing with all of our partners, not just Walmart. But I think that they, again, corporations are in the business of running their own businesses and not investing. They're not institutional investors. So I think that's always a bit of a balancing act. It's corporates look at investments differently than the money managers.
Given the recent collective bargaining activities between legacy OEMs and unions, will Canoo's overall workforce strategy involve organized labor or plan to operate as non-union?
I think everyone's intention originally is to operate as non-union. I think if you're treating your employees well and you're paying them competitively, then there's no reason for a union. I don't think that, given where we're geographically located in our focus right now, that's not something that I've been particularly focused on as the CFO. But I think generally the philosophy would be is like we treat our employees well, and then there's no reason for them to organize.
Looking ahead towards retail, who would you partner with to service the vehicles, switch hats, or upgrade the batteries?
Nitin, I don't know if we have any of those far enough in advance conversations to really comment. I don't know if you have any.
No, exactly right. I mean, we definitely will look for opportunity with the right partners when time comes. And these electric vehicles require some special attention, especially when it comes to the battery. And we will train the workforce and our partners when time comes.
We have some really interesting, I know we didn't talk about it here, and we actually don't normally talk about it on investor calls, but we have a very interesting augmented reality AR technology that we've developed in-house that really help us from both the manufacturing training and ultimately servicing our vehicles. So when we start partnering, we'll be able to roll out the AR technology to really facilitate the technicians that are doing work on our vehicles, whether it be in-house or externally.
Can I jump in here for 1 second?
Sure.
Your fundamental design with greatly reduced number of parts also will help with that, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I mean, with 1,800 parts, the modularity, the simplicity of our design. I mean, the intent is not that. And this is, I think, where we feel very strongly about from an EV ecosystem. The reason customers are adopting EV is not because of a side benefit. It obviously is the green movement, but it's also it's economically enhancing, right? The ROI on an EV is much higher than on an ICE engine, and it has by definition many fewer parts, much simpler simpler technology, and ultimately less service required. Like, what's Nitin the stat on the engine, not engine, the oil life of our electric motors?
Electric motor, yeah. So in our drive unit, we have ATF oil. Once we have that oil in the drive unit, you never have to change in your life cycle of the vehicle. So
yeah. So no more 15,000 mile services or 6,000 mile services.
By partnering with Google Cloud and Onyx, are you offering to delivering companies that your system can prepare more efficient delivery routes for drivers, as well as changes to the routes as conditions change on the road?
Nitin, I don't know if you have any context for all of our Google relationships. I know we've done a lot of work with Google, but I don't know that I can comment on the, the technology, that piece of our overall technology.
Can you,
software.
if I may ask, can you repeat the question? Sorry, I got distracted on my phone. Sorry about that.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I have to find it. It was about, partnering with Google and Onyx.
Yeah.
Will you be offering those services for the delivery companies on, mapping and making route changes, etc.?
Yeah, so again, one of the key technology that we have developed is in-house operating strategy for our software, and part of that is Canoo Hub. Canoo Hub is application that pulls all the relevant data from vehicle that can be very useful to our fleet customers. Now we have all of this data into the cloud. Now it could that cloud could be directly connected to the customer cloud, and we can push all of these information so that our fleet customer can not only manage their fleet, but also we can run prognosis on these fleet vehicles so that before it goes really bad or vehicle goes down, we can identify the problem so that runtime can be pretty high. So answer is yes. When time and opportunity comes up, we will provide these services to our fleet customers.
Great. Are we still on track for our break-even timeframe estimate?
Yes, in 2025.
Okay, great. Is Canoo still on track to meet the 20,000 vehicle manufacturing run rate by Q1 of next year?
Yeah, then that was current as of the earnings call, and it was pushed back slightly as we think about kind of capital allocation. And I think as I mentioned earlier in the presentation that we're continuing to be opportunistic purchasers of equipment at very discounted prices, where we've been able to bring in various types of equipment that will enhance kind of our ability to get to that at a lower cost. And so that's still on track for Q1 readiness.
How much work would it be to change the top hats for the second or third owner? Would Canoo sell hardtop only in the future, or would that be available in the secondary market?
I think, Nitin, you might be able to talk to that in a little more detail, but I think that I don't know that we have cost estimates, but the actual ability to change the top hat or the body of the vehicle is fairly straightforward. I don't know Nitin, if you want to, dive into that in any more detail.
No, absolutely. So again, the fundamental design is to keep the rolling chassis kind of independent of the top hat, and our mechanical and electrical interfaces are defined such that if we were to change the top hat in the future, it could be pretty straightforward and few hours of changeover process.
Great. Well, there are several other questions, but unfortunately we are running out of time. So for the audience, everyone out there has my email address. I'm happy to facilitate more dialogue. And in turn, Canoo will have all of your information as well. Before we sign off, I do want to turn it back over to Canoo for any final words before we say goodbye.
Thank you. So again, thanks to our host here, and thanks for everyone participating. I think I'll just wrap on that. Look, we as a team, a management team, remain very excited about the future of Canoo. We think that our price today is good value, as I mentioned earlier, relative to the total cost invested in the platform to date. We recognize there's been a lot of challenges in the overall market in the space, but we're excited to about building relationships with the family office network, and that this is one that we view as the first of potentially many or a series of these webinars that we can explain more about what we're doing at Canoo as the company evolves and changes and meets the metrics and milestones that Harvey was asking about, that we can share those with this group. And we're obviously available to go into more depth through our partners here at Force Family as time passes. So thank you everyone for your time.
I have one last question. What's your ticker symbol for people who may not know?
GOEV, GOEV.
Great.
Great.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, and have a great day. Thank you.